Okay, now that we have an idea how basics are working, let's get into the important part where we're drawing. All right. Vector or bitmap is not so much a question of which one's better, it's more a question of style and which one you want to use. My main concern is that you guys understand what each of these does, what their advantages and disadvantages can be. All right, so the first thing that you have to do is look down here at the top of my layer. So there's this plus right here. There's camera, color card, drawing, right? We're going to do a drawing. All right, we need a new drawing layer. So you don't have to click on that all the time. Let me get off of that. This right here, not the one on the far right, that adds a peg. But this adds a drawing layer. So you can always, whenever you're adding a new drawing, just click that and this dialog will come up. And what I suggest is naming it right now, or you can just double click the layer and name it later. So I'm going to go ahead and name this one Vector. All right, so our line art is going to be Vector and our color art is going to be Vector. And then I'm going to add enclose. All right, so that adds the layer. So now we've got this. I'm going to switch back over to drawing mode. All right, so in vector mode, we have the brush and the pencil, as well as these basic vector tools. So let's look at these real fast. So a rectangle. Okay. If I hold down Shift, perfect square. If I hold down Alt, it does it from the center. Alt and Shift together, perfect square from the center. All right, now that's fairly important. I can also set the thickness, right, of the box size there. Okay, so this works like what you would expect in most programs. I'm going to select all of this and delete it. Then we'll just go down. Here's the ellipse, right? There's that. That one, go this way. Shift for perfect circle. Alt and Shift to come from the center point. What we're looking at is just basic tools for creating shapes. You might use these sometimes, but it really depends more on the look of the show that you're going for. All right, we also have the line tool, right? It just makes straight lines. And then you've got the polyline tool, which works like a Bezier curve. All right. Little more functionality with this one, right? In terms of being able to get precise shapes. If you don't like vector programs and you don't like drawing this way, you're probably never going to use it, but I just want everybody to know that it's there. All right, we'll delete this. Okay, so more mathematical tools there. And then let's look at the pencil, which is a vector brush. Okay, like it is our vector ability. I'm not going to worry about coloring yet, but I want to go through the tools here. So if you don't have tool properties up, you need to get that panel put in. All right, and so this is the pencil that we're on. This is the stamp. All right, the maximum size is 22.8 at the moment, and then center line smoothing. So I'm going to turn this down to 0 and just try to draw. And I'm using pressure sensitivity, but I'm drawing slow. So it's not bad, okay, but if I hit K to see the line and then 2 to zoom in, you can see there's like all these jagged, right? Like the line is not that smooth. Now there's some different ways that you can do it. So going faster, right? Don't sit there and give your hand time to shake will help with line quality. So you can see that one's much smoother, but I didn't have as much control. Another thing I can do is I can set the center line smoothing up. Right, and that automatically tries to straighten out that or smooth out that drawing. So that's probably the most efficient way. And then I have this selected. I'm going to turn that. Well, I was going to turn it on anyway. So this tool down here underneath the presets, line building mode, it will try to merge multiple lines into a single stroke. So I go like that, that, and come this way. Right, see how that's all staying one stroke. So even though I'm making lots of little strokes, Oops, I didn't get near the end of it, so that's the danger there. Is you've got to be near this yellow dot. But it's a way that you could quickly build a line that you can adjust a little bit. All right, so we have both of those options. I'm going to turn that off for a second. So within the pencil, so the smoothing, I'm going to leave it fairly up. The maximum size is pretty good for me. So pencil 1, 2, 3, these are all pressure sensitive. And what it means is that pressing harder will get you a thicker line, and softer will thin it out. Okay. Now notice that there's this little blue line in here. All right, so that is the center line. That's what makes this a vector stroke. It's a mathematical identification. All right. Now the big difference between that and this brush stroke, notice here now we've got textures and soft lead and fine pencil. But if we just go with a solid brush, we can still go thin and thick. All right, but notice that the line is surrounding it. It is an outline of that stroke. And that's a big difference in how the brush creation works for what we're working with stylistically. So the pencil tool, okay, so I'm going up here to this direct selection. So there's a contour editor, right? And if I do that on this, I'm just moving that line, right? See how it's moving the center line in there. I can grab that and add a new dot, and so this is another way to edit your line art. Okay, but on this brush stroke, when I do it, I actually grab that outside edge. Right, so that's the difference in how these brushes are creating. All right, so we'll go back to the pencil and continue on through it. Actually, I'll delete these first. The normal pencil, and then there's fixed thickness. I feel like when you're cleaning up your artwork, you're probably going to use a fixed thick line, just because it doesn't matter about the pressure sensitivity. It's just going to create the line art that you need. All right, now notice that I drew 3 strokes. I have 3 strokes in here. This becomes important where they're crossing over and touching each other, because anytime you have like a drawing and then another drawing, that space in between there is called a gap. And when we get to ink and paint and we're wanting to apply color inside shapes, if the gap is too large, then it won't know where to fill it. And so we'll talk about that in a bit, but it's something to think about when you're learning how to draw, or learning how to draw in the software. All right, so then we get like charcoal. So what this does is it makes a normal stroke, right, thick and thin, and then applies a texture to the stroke after the fact. Then you have these tapered, okay, and they all say what they do: tapered at the beginning, tapered at the end, medium tapered, but just a tapered line. So it's not so much about the pressure sensitivity as much as it's just going to, right, like so here I'm just making the line no pressure sensitivity. It's automatically tapering the beginning and the end. So if I taper just the beginning, see how it thinned that down, and then I can say taper the end. It does the reverse. All right, pointy pencil, thickness stencil lets you be pressure sensitive more. Okay, and then again I can up the center line smoothing so that I get a cleaner stroke. Right, so it's just that little bit of wave got taken out by the center line. All right, curved above and curved out. Those are just different ways of working with them. But I do feel like for most of the work that y'all are doing, you're going to want to do with the fixed thick pencil. And then if you decide that you want to get something that's a little more textural, there are some textured brushes you can do here, or you're probably going to end up using a bitmap. Go down here and look at bitmap. So I'm going to do bitmap for both of those. And name it, and then add and close. All right, we'll turn vector off. All right, so you notice the first thing you notice is this tool's gone and the pencil tool is gone, right? Those are both vector tools only, so when you're on a bitmap layer, they're just not an option to play with. All right, so now we come into the brush, and you have brush and repaint is what's here. I just need the brush. All right, so soft lead, fine pencil, wax crayon. So these behave much more like Photoshop brushes. or Procreate brushes, where it has a stamp with a texture to it, and then it's repeating that stamp over and over again. So now we have a maximum size for our pressure sensitivity, okay, a flow and an opacity for the brush. So tools that you're probably more familiar with. Okay, and I tend to like to do my drawing with these, but it's not necessarily the most efficient for animation. I don't know what this face is going to be, but whatever. So then you can get in here and play with all of these in terms of like what lines you like, what brushes you like. I feel like that gray is not working well for me, but so that's the color right there. So here's changing your line color. I'm going to turn the saturation all the way down and then get the value down. Now I'll be drawing with the black line. Alright, so if you haven't worked in hue, saturation, value before, that's kind of what you're doing. But we'll talk about color later because you can create palettes for individual characters. But hue, saturation, and value, this top slider is your hue, and then saturation, and then value. So if your saturation is all the way down, your value is just black and white. If your saturation is up, then you get value of that color, whatever hue you've got selected. The line work, one of the main things that you're dealing with inside of Toon Boom Harmony is figuring out your workflow or the studio's workflow to get the look that you want. But just like dealing with paper, you're not going to try and do a perfect drawing on the first pass. You're going to clean it up. So you're going to animate and get all your timing and spacing figured out. You're going to make sure everything's moving the way you want. And then you're going to go to cleanup. Okay. So cleanup in a digital realm can be quite different. And I'm going to simplify some of these underdrawings. So let's get rid of this, because I want to talk about a couple of things. So I'm going to go down to I'll just do a soft lead, maximum size. I'll get more flow. There we go. Test the brush. Might be a little too soft, so we'll try a fine pencil. A little bit better. Alright, so let me do this type of thing and then come in here. I'm going to grab that cutter. And it's not working because we're on this. Yep. So do you see how this whole thing is selected? It did cut that one. But I'm moving this circle around. Let's go back and turn our vector layer on. So this is why when I clean things up, I end up using the vector lines to do my cleanup art. So we have that circle drawn under there, and we tried to put a line across it. So I could come in here and grab the ellipse and try to guess at where the center is. Right, and get a perfect drawing there. I don't know if I like the pointing. I think I'll just go to a pencil. Actually, we'll do a fixed thickness. Sure. Alright, so there's that. And then I'm going to go to the pencil tool here. And it's on fixed thickness as well. And then I'm going to come through this way. So you can see these little dots or crossovers that appeared. So now if I come up here to selection, right, remember we can select that, or I can select just that line because the vector lines are separate. The cutter that I was trying to show you, this works great when you're cleaning up your line art because you don't really have to erase anything there. The next thing is I didn't have my center line smoothing turned up when I made this line inside here, so it looks a little jagged compared to the outside. When you have it selected, right, you have tools over here and tool properties as well. We're going to go through all these in a second, but this one's really good because it's the smooth option. So I click it and it smooths that line out. I can click it again and it smooths it a little bit more. So now that line that I drew by hand feels much cleaner. Right, and so now I end up having this cleaned up drawing. I guess I can turn off the bitmap. There we go. Right, that's the basis of the drawing program, or what your drawing options are in here. Painting is a little bit different. I'll show you real fast, but we'll talk about it more because I want to go through some tools. So this is the paint bucket. This is paint the unpainted, repaint, unpaint, do the stroke, or close the gap. I'm just going to go on paint. If I come down here to a palette and I choose like this green, it fills the inside shape there. Right? And then we'll deal with toning and other stuff. I guess I can show you all real fast. So this is the alien drawing. I'm not sure why. Oh, these aren't turned on either. There we go. All right. Not sure why that's on, but I'm going to go back to camera. So this guy I animated just moving across. So it's a single drawing. But the main thing I'm showing you is like the painting was done the way you saw, and I used a natural brush to kind of quickly ink it. This is what I was drawing during the Toon Boom call with Tom, or the welcome back thing with Tom, the Zoom video. But the shading there is a little harder to deal with. You have to end up doing tones and stuff. So you always end up with flat colors, and then you can come in and shade separately using mattes. All right, so we'll close this down, get back to our bitmap and our vector drawings. Those are on still, so I'll turn those off. Now, where did our drawings go? Oh, timeline, duh. All right, so zoom back in. All right, so let's go back to, we're on our vector layer. I want to grab my pencil, and I want to get into some of the other things that are going on in the tool properties. So I'm going to draw a line real fast, and then I want to switch my next line to be red. All right, so on this one, I think I had already turned on draw behind, hadn't I? No? I have this. There we go. That one definitely went behind. Oh, the other one's just the Bezier curve. So see, this first one that we drew on top of. This one, once I clicked draw behind on the pencil, it just drew that next line underneath. Oh, I'm on the eraser. I was like, why am I getting eraser options? Okay, and then there's autofill. I don't deal with that generally because I prefer to ink and paint separately. Okay, and then get rid of extra edges is for when you're taking your circle and you overshoot, and it just automatically gets rid of that excess line. Okay, and then there is align handles after trim. Right, and so that makes it, see how it smoothed out that curve, whereas this one is still a little bit of a point. So that's the big difference there, is when this comes like this and I overshoot, it gets rid of the excess, right? But you can't, it won't get rid of the excess if they don't cross over themselves. And again, did not cross over it enough. There we go. I'm just showing you all this stuff in the video so that you can try and play with it. I know you can rewind or whatever, and then we have time in class to ask when you're playing around with stuff. Okay, so that's these things down here. This one, in applying color or automatically create color art, don't worry about that one. Merging down or auto flatten, it's not going to work with the pencil very well. It works great with the fixed thickness, but here I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I go to so I can go pencil, and then I'll turn on the automatically merge and draw a pencil, and then I'll select. See how that's still separate? This one is still separate. Like it just can't automatically merge those. It's a bug. It's been there for a while. It's not going anywhere because most people just deal with it. It'll still color those lines. The fixed thickness, however, if I draw and then draw that, it does connect those so that you select the whole thing. Which is another reason a lot of people end up using the fixed thickness. It'll just keep your line art the same if you want it to. You can also do that. Notice that when I'm on the selection tool, we have new tool properties up here. We'll go through all these again in a second. I want to stay on pencil for the moment. All right, so auto close gap. Let's see, turn this off. So it will try. Let's see. So on a thicker line like this, it still didn't do it, right? See how it left that gap? That one did it. All right, let's take the fixed thickness down. Got it on that one, and then let's go like that. All right, so the thicker line is working really well. Let's go to here. So these are some changes that they've made. Ooh, that is working actually a lot better. I am way zoomed in, and it auto gapped that. So looks like they fixed some things in Harmony 20 from Harmony 12. All right, so it didn't get that one quite close enough to gap, close the gap for us. That one it did though. It stopped the. Oops, I didn't mean to zoom in that much. All right, so the stroke stops, but this gap is closed. That line being closed there means that if we want to go in and paint, and that's why we're doing all this, is so that we can actually paint the inside of that shape. It closed that gap for us. That's the important part. So whether or not you're getting the gaps to close or you have to do them individually, and that's right here. All right, so close large gaps. That's with paint. So I can do it here. It's not, oh, it affected the line. So it's still not closing that gap is too much. But anyway, back to pencil. Okay, so that gives you an idea of some of these tools, hopefully. Go back through these. All right, the magnet, it's supposed to snap. You can also do that with Alt. I don't really want to snap to alignment guides, so I usually don't play with that. I showed y'all this one. Okay, so the next one is, stay on there for me. All right, so let's draw this and then go to the auto adjust. So it brings up this color of what you're going to draw with, and then it's just not, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not predictable in what it's going to try to do. It should be affecting the thickness of this stroke, but it's not. And if I want to do that, I'm better off for selecting here, and then that's pencil to brush, that's thickness, smooth. Oh, where'd it go? Not the cutter. I think it's this one. There we go. So there's the pencil editor, or the centerline editor. Oh, that's on the brush. See how it changed the brush? The pencil editor is the one I want. There I go. Now I can adjust the thickness, and I can control it a little bit easier. So there's tools in here, and maybe I'm not up to date because we're on 20 now, but they still don't seem to be working the way I want them to, and they never really have worked that well. So the direct select editors are much easier. So that's smooth on this one. See how I got rid of those excess points, right? So there's 3 Bezier points in here, and when I paint over it, it gets rid of. It tries to maintain the line, but get rid of any excess points that might keep it from being perfectly smooth. Okay, is that everything in the pencil tool? Oh, the push or nudge. Well, it's happening more on this one up here. You can see it's pulling that line. Okay, so if I drag, it's actually pushing that one in. So if I come on the inside of the line and push it out. So this is just a way to like nudge your drawings and make small adjustments. You can see if you do too much here, like it started to form a point there. We were way zoomed in to get all those things to be working. All the gap closes. That's why we were zoomed in so much. Okay. Whoops, pencil tools. Yes, 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 and nudge. I'm going to turn that off. All right. the type of line that you draw, whether you want it to round out past the Bezier point or the handle or flat, that's all right here. All right, and then join, you could be round, miter, or bevel. Usually you want round. But that's the pencil. Like I said, centerline smoothing can really help you when you're drawing long lines and you're trying to be precise. It'll try and smooth that line out for you. And then this, when you're dealing with your pressure sensitivity, okay, but notice that it didn't go to a perfect point. That's where you'd want to switch to a tapered. And I needed to up that centerline smoothing, make it a little bit thicker. All right, so it'll automatically come to nice crisp points when you're on the tapered line, and then the centerline smoothing helped all of this get really nice and smooth, as opposed to me if I was trying to go super slow, and I'm trying to make this a little jaggy. So I tried to clean that up, but there was just too much information in there. I guess we can try to go even more. I'm really trying to push what the software does now. That did pretty good. Usually you're not going to be drawing that slow, I hope. Nice. So the centerline smoothing, again, I think that's something you play with and you'll find your preferences. Okay, so we've been through the presets and all of these tools. Now that we have some lines up there, let's go ahead and select one. All right, so I've shown you all this one where you can click on it, just keep clicking it, and it'll try to smooth that line out. Eventually, it'll smooth it to something beyond what you want, so be careful about that. This is the merge down, so it should like flatten drawings into themselves. So if I grab this, if I've got all three of those, if I say flatten, it should have done that. So I should select this and it should select all three, but that's where I was saying it just doesn't, it doesn't do that. It doesn't bother me because we can still color. It'll still recognize the shape inside when we want to color like we did on this ball over here. But it doesn't happen that often. This one is color art from line art and distribute to layers. We're not going to worry about those right now. Store a color gradient if you've got a gradient position that you want to keep. But gradients are a little harder to work with. A pencil to the brush, remember how this has the center line and the brush has the outside edge? That's all that does. Is so we take this and we can convert it. Now the lines are on the outside. So that's really all that that's talking about. And now it doesn't have those pencil options anymore. So we'll go back and select this. Merge pencil lines into a single drawing object. So it's, remember the hammer when I was saying you draw and it tries to do that? That's what that tool tries to do. Anything that's crossing over or near each other's edge. So let's see if I can get this to be near that. And then select them both. And that's the merge. So if it did it correctly, nope. So it still didn't connect those, most likely because they're different colors. Tools that just we don't worry about. And then reverse thickness really works more on a tapered end. So let's get here, get to presets, tapered end, really thick, go here. All right, so see how that's tapered like that? Oh, where did it go? Oh, I don't have it selected. Duh. So this will flip that, just flips that line back and forth depending on which way you want it to go. All right, I think that's pretty good in terms of what we can do with the pencil. So we'll move back over to bitmap for the brush. So you can play with all of these and figure out what you want to work with. I don't know what I'm working with on why this is. The tilting pencil is staying like that. A fine pencil. It's pretty good. There we go. All right, so I'd said that you'll probably want to use a vector to clean up and paint with. but you don't have to. I'm going to go to the paintbrush. I'll choose this green. See, it will still recognize a bitmap stroke, and this is how you can get a more stylized idea of a line if you want to, right? If you want to use something that has more texture to it. So I'll come over here and here's ballpoint, marker, airbrush, soft shading, hard shading, texture wash. All right, so that feels like it's got some good texture on there. I don't know if you'd want to line art with that, but I guess you could. There's water pastel. And that's how you use when you end up adding this and you say you want to do bitmap color art. I'll close that down. That's how you could kind of try to create that. It's going to become more of an issue later than prior. Let's see. So I showed you that, and then I showed you the cutter, and then we'll go back to vector because we don't have direct select on bitmap stuff. All right, so then you have the main ones here is the pencil editor, or the centerline editor, or the contour editor, and then the smooth helps as well. But just knowing that those are there so that if you want to mess with this, I can grab that node and adjust the drawing. This becomes particularly important when you're trying to clean up your drawing. So just knowing what all these tools do. That's all this video is about. It's probably gone on a little long. If you have any questions, let me know. But really, if you just know how to create the layers, vector or bitmap, and then you play with the tools, your pencil or your brush, and then filling them in, we'll deal with painting in a second. And I'm going to end this video right there.